Welcome back to ALEC TV. We're in the afternoon here of the first day of the States and Nation Policy Summit here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm Tom McLaughlin, and I'm joined now by Jason Bedrick, the Director of Policy at EdChoice. How are you today?
Great, thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. So, how are you enjoying the meeting so far?
Meeting is great, always great. Nice to have it here in my home state, the Cactus Patch, Arizona.
There you go. So you saw something pretty interesting earlier today. You were talking about Elizabeth Warren said something pretty interesting about the way that education is funded.
Yeah, so a few weeks ago, Elizabeth Warren had a rally in Atlanta, Georgia. It made headlines because a number of African American education activists interrupted her rally because of her position on school choice, because she has been anti-charter school. And so she had a meeting with them afterwards. Now this also got a lot of attention because at this meeting, Sarah Carpenter, who was one of the African American education activists, pressed her on the fact that her children went to private schools. She denied it,
right.
But it turns out actually her son did go to private school from grade 5 through 12. So that got a lot of attention because she was caught in a lie. But there was another part of that same video, that same conversation she was having, that I thought was actually even much more interesting and had more policy implications. So I'll read you a direct quote of what she said.
Right here. Let me hear this.
All right. So they were saying that the money isn't making its way all the way down into the classrooms, right? You have all these spending increases, but the money doesn't make it into the classroom. And so Elizabeth Warren says, listen, I understand that. I got an increase in child development block grants of 85%, and I told all of my folks back in Massachusetts, you're going to get an 85% raise at all of our little child development centers. You know how much of that raise they got? Zero. Somehow it all went to state government and never made it down. And so this really should call into question the idea of throwing money at the problem. If you aren't making any other structural changes in the system and you're just throwing money at the problem, well, that money is not actually making it into the classroom where it needs to.
Well, absolutely not. And you see that in Massachusetts as well, but I've seen it before. I'm from New Jersey, which has historically had a problem with this education funding. Famously, they put $100 million in the education program and it vanished into thin air. And it is state government, but it's also administrators, it's teacher unions, it's non-teacher stuff. Can you speak a little more about that?
Yeah, so there is a great report that EdChoice puts out, has updated a few times with Professor Ben Scafidi of Kennesaw State University in Georgia, called the Staffing Surge. And there's Staffing Surge 2, back to the Staffing Surge. So you can find this report at our website, edchoice.org. And what he traces is that the growth in, not only is the growth in teachers outpacing the growth in students, but the growth in non-teaching staff is far outpacing both. So if you look from the 1950s all the way through about 2014, you have a student population that doubles. The teaching population increases by 250%,
right.
But non-teaching staff increases by 700%. And so there's just all this administrative bloat. Now, some will say, well, you have to factor in the fact that during that time we started to educate special needs students, and that's true. So you did have to hire a number of staffers that deal with special needs. But if you look at 1992 to 2014, so this is after special needs students have already become a part of the public school population, right. You still see that the growth in non-teaching staff is more than double the growth in the number of students, the increase in the number of students. Professor Scafidi estimates that if you had just kept pace, in other words, if the growth in non-teaching staff had just kept pace with the growth in students, you would be able to give every single teacher in this country an $11,000 raise every single year over that time period. So this would actually, you can see that the money is just not making it into the classroom. It's being sucked up by the bureaucracy.
Right. Okay, so the proverbial $11,000 question, if you will, then is, what's the solution? How do you fix this?
So I think you do need structural change. One of the most important changes that you can make would be to have the money follow the child. That would make schools have an incentive to put money where it's going to be most effective. Right? Year after year, the schools are saying, we're underfunded, our teachers are underpaid, you need to give us more money. Legislatures then open the spigot, give more money, or they do a bond override locally, and then they take that money and they put it somewhere besides the classroom. Well, if what they really need to attract top talent is better paid teachers, if parents had the ability to choose the school that they thought best met their child's needs, and the money followed the child's, then schools would have a much stronger incentive to meet parents' needs, including meeting their needs for highly paid, highly competent teachers. So if we want structural reform, we have to change where the money flows.
That's really something. And is there political capital for this?
I think so. So reports, surveys that EdChoice and American Federation for Children and Education Next have done over and over find that a majority of Americans are in favor of school choice policies, school vouchers, tax credit scholarships, education savings accounts, mechanisms that allow the money to follow the child. And actually, those who are most in favor are African Americans, Hispanics, and lower income Americans, because they are the most choice deprived. They tend to be the ones that are in areas where they are assigned to district schools that are lower performing. And so, other people have school choice. If you're wealthy enough, you can move to a district that is more expensive, that has a better school,
right,
or you can afford private school tuition. It's those lower income Americans that are looking for greater access to school choice. They're the ones that are the most supportive of policies that allow the tax dollars to follow their child.
Right. Now there's something happening here in Arizona you're mentioning as well that Governor Ducey is doing. Is that
Yeah,
related?
so Governor Ducey has long been a supporter of education savings accounts here in the state of Arizona, and also he was trying to raise teacher pay in the state. So he had an initiative called 20%. It was called 20 by 2020. So this was a 20% raise for teachers by 2020. He got this plan passed through the state legislature. Although we should point out, the governor doesn't actually set wages. So
right,
he was able to allocate money, but it's the local school boards that set wages. So for example, Tucson Unified, one of the larger school districts in the state, their school board decided, well, we're going to give teachers a lower raise in order to take some of this money and give raises to non-teaching staff. So again, it just shows that the money doesn't always necessarily always make it down into the pockets of teachers, even when you open the spigots and try and give them more money.
Huh. Really does kind of illustrate the need for a really dramatic overhaul of the system. But
Yeah.
I want to thank you for your time today. Thanks for coming to talk to me about this. It's
Thank you for
super
having me.
interesting. I love talking about school choice stuff. So
Absolutely.
thanks.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Keep it right here for more ALEC TV. We'll have plenty more coverage from the States of the Nation Policy Summit coming right up.